Assalamualaikum everyone. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yes, Doctor.
Yes, Doctor.
Hey, hi. Sorry for the delay. It's been a very busy day for me since morning. So too hectic actually. I had to give I had for several classes early on, and in between I needed to give a pitch. So it's still going on. It was supposed to finish at 4:30, but things got delayed and it's still going on. I'm supposed to be there, but now I need to come back here. So yeah, so now it's your turn. All right. Okay. How many people do we have here? Don't forget to sign your attendance, yeah? Okay, 33 people. What do you say? Do you want to start or do you want to wait some more?
They can't sign attendance.
You cannot sign attendance.
Yeah, the status is still not. Yeah, status is still a question mark.
Right. Okay. Let me see. I know some of you text me, but yeah, I haven't actually had a chance to look at your questions yet, so I'll attend to it later. Okay, can you try now? And let me know if it works.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, good. Right. So, did you guys manage to register yourself for the vaccine?
Nope.
Anyone?
Yes.
No? Yes.
Yes,
very good.
already got the shot.
Oh, very good. Congratulations. What, both shots or just one?
One shot. During the first AstraZeneca one.
Oh, during the first call.
Oh yeah.
And did you have any effect, any side effects?
2 days fever.
Yeah, a lot of people had that. Yeah, a few people I knew of also have the same side effects. But after that, you guys are okay, right? Should be alright. So I'm still not able to get any vaccines yet. Probably for the next maybe in the next 2 months. Yeah. So I finished my 1 month. So that's gonna take some time for me as well. Okay. Let's see. Okay. I'm supposed to discuss about your summative assessment, but I'm not sure if there'll be more people coming. Slightly more than half of you attend today's class, so I don't know if the next half will attend. But anyway, I'll probably talk about that later during the break or something. So let's continue. Before that, do you have any questions to ask me? I've already shared the the previous lecture, so you should be able to have access to them later. Actually, not necessarily later, even now. Okay, right. Okay, if no question, then I'm sharing my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So of course, what you see on my screen should be a picture of a very well-known person. Who is it?
Einstein.
Albert Einstein.
Of course, Albert Einstein, right? So what is he associated to most?
Theory of relativity.
Yeah, the big.
That is one. The theory of relativity, right? E equals to mc squared, right? That's this what is it? Very well known equation. So yeah, because of that, we also kind of like categorize him as somebody who is very intelligent, right? So let me see if the lecture is being recorded. Not yet. Okay, just gonna record the lecture. And yeah, because he is intelligent, that's the reason why he could come up with that theory after several years, right? Not just like an overnight thing. So it's interesting what we see over here can serve different purpose, right? So you can sit on it. Of course, it's not standard kind of chair we normally see, but it's an interesting one. It's something that I would like to have in my home. And I'm sure many would like to also have this. Something that you can sit, you can like, make it as a table as well. So it's nice, right? And of course, coming up with this sort of products require certain characteristics, right? And this is just another example. You can see this person trying to sit here, for once you might feel that you might just like fall anytime. I think like a lot of students like to sit this way during school days. Not sure, probably the kind of chair that we have now wouldn't really allow you to sit like this, but I remember when I was at school, a lot of students, a lot of teachers have to remind the students not to sit like this because they can just like fall and get injured. So this is one of the other things. This is what you see, a knife within knives, and yeah, you see this one. So all of this requires again a very special characteristics, right? And this is what we call being creative. And if I were to ask you, what can you do with a paperclip apart from its normal purpose? What would you say? Oh, what is it that comes to your mind first? Anyone?
You can make it as a chain.
As a chain, yeah, we do that a lot. Yeah, you put one paperclip and then you start like connecting.
Yeah.
Paperclips and make a chain. Yeah, we do that a lot. We can also do what I can think of is paper clips, and also, of course, in different designs. Some people actually put like the love design using a paper clip. If you know what I'm talking about, the heart design. Yeah. What else?
You can pick locks with a paper clip.
You can again.
You can lock pick.
I miss.
You can
Lock
pick
pick.
locks.
Lock picking.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. That's. Are you talking based on experience? So yeah, I mean we've seen a lot of that as well, right? So when you want to break into someone's locker or house or even our own, right? So sometimes you try to break the lock by using paper clips. Sometimes it's successful, sometimes it's not. So not sure whether or not it's really it's really helpful in all cases. So that brings us to what we're going to be learning today, which is on intelligence, creativity, and if you've got time, emotion and expression. So this will be the list of things we will learn on intelligence, creativity, what makes a creative person, what does it take for us to come up with creative products, and then later we're going to be looking at the relations of cognition and emotions and how that affects our memory and encoding. So okay, so coming to the next question, how are creativity and intelligence linked with each other? Do you think they're related or do you think they're completely unrelated? What's your view?
I would say they're related to some degree. Yes.
Yeah. So basically, what you're saying is, in order to become intelligent, you need to be creative, and vice versa.
I feel like it's in order to be creative, you have to be intelligent. It's like the other way around.
The other way
You have to
around.
be intelligent in some form.
Okay. All right. Okay. So how about the others? What do you guys say? Anyone?
I don't think so, because you see the artists that draw the pictures, they not really having high intelligence in order to draw a very creative picture.
Yeah, sometimes you see that, right? You see people like at like by the side of the streets, they might not have like very high degree, they might not have a PhD, right, or even like a diploma, but they are very, very creative, right? So like some says that maybe it's not so directly linked, or not directly related or strongly influenced. So
But
like go on.
But that depends on what you count as intelligence. There are many kinds of intelligence, more than just academic sort of intelligence.
Yeah.
Like for example, example of creativity, sense of creativity that requires really high intelligence is like if you've seen like those shadow arts where they organize random items in a certain way. Where if you look at it as it is, you won't really understand what it is. But then when you look at the shadow or maybe a certain angle, so in that sense.
True. Because I remember there was once, I do not know whether or not, there was this group, I think they're from the Philippines. I think it's called something Penumbra, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Anyone of you know what I'm talking about? It's like they make performance, but they use like shadows. So yeah, I probably want to Google on YouTube or something. But yeah, I remember watching that at some point, relating to this, making shadows from their performance, which I thought is very, very interesting and creative. So it is true. It's a very difficult thing to say, right? It's a very loose definition over here, whether in order to be creative, whether or not you need to have intelligence, what sort of intelligence or what degree or what level, what type, and whether or not it is really necessary to be intelligent to be creative, because we have come across people who don't even go to universities but can draw very well. One of the examples I wanted to say is people who are special needs, most of the time autism, children or people, sometimes they have difficulties explaining themselves, describing what they want or speaking, or probably they don't really have high IQ. I'm not sure if that is a right way of saying, but but again, they can be drawing really beautiful and artistic, even creative arts that most of us even cannot do. Not necessarily just paintings, but maybe making music, memorizing, doing a lot of things, right? So there's a lot of things that we need to look into when it comes to these two. And of course, these are completely two unrelated abilities because they are completely different things. But and of course, when we discuss, whether or not one needs to be intelligent to be creative, the answer is a little bit like yes and no, somewhere in between. Of course, you can say people, just like how we argue, right? How we debate. Researchers also say, well, it could be yes and no, but mainly they will say yes. Okay, do you need to be intelligent to be creative? To some extent, okay, because artistic creativity doesn't only depend on academic intelligence, right? Such as, being able to know more in physics, medical. Maybe in those days, probably in many years ago, a lot of scholars during that time will have characteristics of different types. So they not only specialize in one area, but across many areas. So in that case, they are probably special, very, very special. These are the era even before Einstein, right? So over here there is a saying, Bill Gates says, I have never met the guy who doesn't know how to multiply, who created software, who has the most creative video games in the world, Japan. So for Japanese. So I never met these people. Some of them are my best software developers. So of course, what he's saying here implies that in order for you to be creative, Japanese is known to be very, very creative. I think we have a student in India, right? So maybe you kind of agree with me, Masayoshi, that you can never find anything that is that doesn't actually makes you excited, because they're always coming up with all interesting things, right? So that is on that. So the next we want to look at intelligence. So by definition, it refers to abstract thought, understanding, being aware on not just academic but communication, reasoning, learning, many things. So there's a lot of definition that we can put under the umbrella of intelligence, but mainly it covers the scope of thinking ability and cognitive ability. So long that you can demonstrate the knowing of something, then you have already used some sort of intelligence, right? Whereas creativity means creating something that is innovative, something that is novel, completely new, and it has to be useful, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a product, it can also be a solution. So Guildford actually comes up with two classes of creativity. One is what he calls convergent thinking, another one is divergent thinking. So convergent thinking is the things we normally apply at school. So normally in exams, what we have is basically only a single correct answer, whereas divergent thinking is something that you do when you are at a postgraduate level or PhD. It requires a lot of thought, requires you to think, to search, and the kinds of answer that you produce can be a yes and no. So not necessarily a strict binary kind of yes answer where you normally grade in a usual school examination. Right, so these are the two types of creativity, and Maggie Bowden also describes creativity in two approaches. So one is called improbabilistic, another one is impossibilistic. So in the simplest terms, the first, improbabilistic, actually refers to producing a product that is a combination of the things we already know. So for example, when the Wright brothers came up with aeroplane, so the idea actually originates from looking at birds that can fly. So they say, okay, if birds can fly, why can we create a vehicle that can also fly, right? So for example, motorcycle is a bicycle that has, in the loosest term that you can put, a bicycle that has a motor, right? So this is what we call improbabilistic, something to, you come up with something based, after you derive from what you already know. Whereas impossibilistic is the discovery of information or knowledge or idea that is completely novel, just like what the late Steve Jobs did when he first came out with the first generation of iPhone. We knew that, okay, of course you can say, well, it could be improbabilistic, but the idea is we've never seen a phone that is a touch screen. He was probably the first who created this touch screen phone, and everybody got very excited because regardless of age, whether you are 2-year-old or 60-year-old or 70 years old, you can use that device. It's so easy to use compared to those days where you have all these phones with buttons. So we can say that, when you first come up with an idea that nobody came up with, that is a definition of impossibilistic creativity level. So what we want to look at now is the different characteristics of creative minds. And of course, these are the things that is associated. And if you are probably maybe 80%, 90% having this sort of characteristics, you can say that you are creative. Most of us as human and individuals, we do have this sort of characteristics. Like Mozart, he was able to compose the music at the age of 6. Right. So even now, I struggle to even play a very, very simple musical notes. So it's amazing. Yeah. But the thing about coming to this term genius, it doesn't. So a lot of people, there's a debate. Like some people say that, you need to be genius from a very young age. Although, yes, that is the common case, but it can be something that happens at any point of your life, right? Yeah, a lot of people said, in order to be genius, just have, you're simply gifted. You're very good at doing certain things. But I feel that, for normal people, probably it takes a lot of experience and effort to reach out to this level. So you're also expert in your own domain. These people are very, very motivated. If you have seen, I think, was it TV shows, if I'm mistaken, on Einstein. So, it shows about his life before he actually came up with the theory of relativity, and it was only very late in his age that he came up with that theory. So it's really interesting to see how these people are extremely motivated when it comes to doing. They only focus on the one small aspect of their work. And you can see that they're flexible, fluent, all of these. But above all, what I like is the sense of humor. And I think this is one of the most famous image of Albert Einstein. And it shows that he also has a very good sense of humor, apart from just being intelligent and creative. So that is that. Okay, so you can have a look at that on your own. The next that I want to ask is, between creativity and intelligence, in your personal opinion, which one is easier to measure? Anyone?
Yes.
I'd say
intelligence.
Again?
Intelligence.
Yeah, why so?
Because it's more on like how like if you know things and stuff. So if given a set of questions, if you answer the questions correctly, then we can assume you're at least intelligent. You can identify your intelligence from there. Whereas creativity, it's highly subjective. So something that looks good to one person might look terrible to another, and then to identify if someone is actually creative is
true enough. Yeah, so that's why when you see like a piece of art, it doesn't matter whether it's painting or music or any piece of art, different people will evaluate or can appreciate the level of that art differently, right? So that is true. That's because creativity is a lot more subjective, so compared to intelligence, where it can be tested quite easily, especially using IQ tests. So if you look here, these are different levels of evaluation for creativity and intelligence. So again, the outcome of intelligence is it shows that you know something, right? So it's also, you're also being evaluated in terms of intelligence at the level of of basically all courses that you take. There's actually a term where we use to evaluate your intelligence. And but the thing about creativity is, we know that it's subjective. You bring something into existence. We talk about probabilistic and possibilistic. So to what degree something is more creative than the other. So very difficult to measure, right? So, and of course, skills are very hard to define. How do you define somebody who is gifted versus someone who is a genius? So what definition holds for that sort of definition? And there are, simply because they are very unique in their own ways, right? And of course, for intelligence, I mentioned that one of the known tests is the IQ test. It's a very it's a very well-known test that's used across people, regardless of where you are in the world, and it's established. So it is used to test your skills, your knowledge, and of course, the duration of intelligence can improve with age. Until adulthood. So that's why it's not fair for you to test somebody who is a 2-year-old with some calculus or even basic calculus. Maybe they struggle, right? So, and of course, with creativity, as indicated, it can occur randomly at different stages of life or in life. So in terms of intelligence, again, it seems to be impossible to measure for creativity, but more clear for intelligence, because there is a fixed rubrics, at least with the IQ. So the next is basically the steps we normally use to produce a creative process. One is basically to prepare. Whenever you want, you can actually look at this, but I don't think I have the time today to prepare yourself to come up with something creative. You need to put a lot of effort, okay, when you're asked to do a certain thing. And what's interesting is you need to be in this state called incubation. So after you are done, so let's just take an example of writing a piece of program, okay? So let's say you're given a task to write a computer program, okay? And before that, you need to learn that programming language. Let's say it's Java, okay? You need to know about selection, repetition, you need to know about arrays and so on, okay? And you're given the question. And then that knowing those skills and the knowledge is this level, and then you have this concentrated effort. Basically, when you're given, let's say, the question, and then you have to come up with a solution. Okay, so finding that solution, just thinking about what strategies you want to apply to solve the problem, okay, is this level concentrated effort. Assuming if the problem is so difficult, right, it's something that you have not come across, something that you do not know, okay, then something that a lot of us actually miss, that you can do is to actually withdraw yourself from that problem. Have you been in a situation where you do something but you get stuck? You just cannot find a solution for that at all, right? But what you do is you leave it for some time, and then later you come back to it. And you don't necessarily probably need to come back, but maybe the solution can come to you suddenly. And this is what we call insight or illumination. And after that, then you will proceed with the solution. And of course, once you're done with your program, you need to test your program. So this is where you do verification, evaluation, and elaboration. So these are all the common strategies that we have to go through in order for us to come up with something creative. Right, okay, so let's try. Okay, let's try to do a very brief activity. Okay. Right, can I get you guys to open your notebook on your screen? Okay, click on this bit, the navigation, and click on this collaboration space. And you see this bit? Week 11. Okay. You all following?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, all right. Okay, so let's say if I draw something, can I draw? Let's see. Can I draw? Just go down a bit. Okay. Okay, if I draw that, any one of you, okay, if you can you continue for my drawing? Oh, what do you do? Continue for my drawing. Okay, probably this is mine. Yeah, and try to produce something that can walk, fly, swim, and hop, and it doesn't have to be an animal.
Where do I go? Get in the class notebook? Where do I go in the class notebook?
In the class notebook, and then you click on this navigation. Right, and then you go to this collaboration space.
Collab space.
Right, click on this using collaboration space, and it should be one of the files where you initially did your collaborative tutorial. Found it? Anyone?
Takes a bit to open.
All right. Yeah, this activity is more fun to do in physical setting. Oh wow, okay, so that's what we have. Right, okay, so anybody, you can just jump in, right? I'm not asking you to write names or anything. We just want to see what we can come up with at the end. Okay, right, okay, so I started with that, and somebody, I thought this is, I don't know what this is, but I think this is, okay, somebody said drawing. And then, okay, and then we have this bit over here. Looks like a fan over here. Okay, try to extend from this drawing alone. Try not to draw anything outside. Just try to extend from what we have, from your, even from your friends also you can. Okay. So this is what we need to, this is our goal, to come up with something that can walk, fly, swim, and hop.
I wanted to draw a man at an airport, but it's become a boat now.
Yeah, sure. Okay, that's fine. It's okay. You can just continue. Whatever that you see, anybody can just continue. Okay, I see like a bird's head over here. Okay, probably this is a wing. Somebody tried to draw. There's a wing over here. I don't know if this is a mistake or somebody tried to draw something over here. Okay. Okay. Right. Okay, are we done? Okay, someone else still drawing. So we got feet over here, another one here. this is so innovative. So cute. Right, okay. So some very good. Very good. Okay. Okay, are we still drawing? Okay. All right. Okay, I think you can continue, but I will just start describing. Okay, so this is what we're supposed to do, right? Something that can walk, okay, and because you know that it can walk, fly, swim, and hop, it doesn't have to be animal. So when the statement, is so simple, you can question a lot about this statement, right? But still, you will be able to come up with something that is interesting. I would say very, very interesting, because first we started off with this square box, right? And then somebody drew this first, and this makes it as a boat, because then you can say, why is it boat? Because probably this is in water. Yeah, somebody just draw water. Maybe this is yeah, okay. And then you have this what is it?
Propeller.
Fan. Propeller, that's right. And then you have some spring over here, because it says that it should be able to hop. And our estimation that, for something to be able to hop, right, you need to have a spring, right, if it's not an animal. So do we have an animal that hops? Yeah, we do. And in another option is to use both of these. We have legs over here. And not sure what this is. So then somebody drew, because you need to fly, right? So, okay, because you know that birds fly, okay? And that's why somebody drew this, what is it? Wings over here. And someone else felt, okay, this is not strong enough. We need a bigger wing. So there you go. So you draw bigger wings over here. Maybe, there's a lot where we can argue whether or not this makes sense. But so much that we want to produce this thing that satisfies this requirement, we're all doing these things, right? And you can say that, all right, we are very satisfied with this one. So I don't know, what is this? Maybe this is a turbo, another wing. And you also have okay, because this is not an animal, just to show that there's a human over here trying to fish. So, so they don't have to maneuver the maybe the vehicle on their own, the boat on their own. So maybe, yeah, and you have birds over here, you have this sunny day. So, yeah, it's we were only doing this in maybe 5 minutes, right? Or maybe less. But, with all the minds that we have, I don't know how many people actually contributed to this, but maybe 4, maybe 5. I hope it's not just one person. But still, what I want to show over here is eventually we are still able to come up with something very creative. And it's really interesting. It's an activity that I really like to do in the class, especially this bit, because every time we do this activity, we absolutely get different answers and different outcomes. I should actually, take a snapshot of this. So don't delete this. Probably take a snapshot of it later. Right. Okay. So this is what we managed to come up with. And of course, what I want to talk about next is the type of characteristics that all of us needed to have if we were to work in a team to produce something creative, right? So first of all, we need to be open enough. So what that means is you need to let new data and new experience come in without judging. Of course, you can say oh, this is not supposed to be a bird. So how come you're drawing this bird? We have enough wings, or why are you drawing extra wings? But without even questioning, we were just filling in all of this without much discussion, right? And we can still be able to produce something that is novel, I would say. Of course, it requires us to be very focused, that allows us to pay attention based on the requirement given. You have this what is it, items that you need to satisfy, okay? And of course you need to make sense with what you know. And of course discipline, just concentrate, hard work, just keep on continuing, even though we start off quite slowly, but then after somebody starts to draw, and then things start to appear, and we can make sense. And eventually, once we're done with that, we can actually give it a closure. I think all of us got actually very excited and start even continuing from here, because we feel that okay, there's so much that we can contribute to making this more interesting. But to some extent, even when you come up with a product, right, whatever it is, your assignment, when you create a program, you need to give a closure. Okay, so this is when the product is finished. When you feel that, okay, this is enough, I don't have to destroy, I do not need to start over, I can actually continue with what I have now. So I now define that my product or my drawing is a creative drawing. So these are again the list of characteristics we need to have in order to produce something innovative. Okay, so yeah. So next time, maybe it is a good thing for us not to be very judgmental or even judgmental at all. Right, so this is another activity, but I'm not sure whether or not we have time. You can try this with your friends or family members at home. Okay, what we normally do is we get students to choose this one. Later they have to draw on their own and then basically show and discuss. Okay, probably look into this in a while, but let's move on. So there's this model of creativity called Jean Plot model. So this is where, so based on this model, there is basically a series of phases we have to go through. One is called generative, another one is called exploratory. So in generative, you try to come up with a structure, pre-inventive, construct a mental representation, or come up with what we call an possibilistic creative approach, and then you start to explore how else you can do changes to produce something that is different or innovative. So this process actually happens iteratively until you eventually come up with a creative product. And this has been used in the use of this model has been tested in this experiment, where participants were asked to imagine tasks that would tend to generate products that were structured in various ways. So the task was basically to ask the participants to draw imaginary creatures on a planet somewhere else in the galaxy. Absolutely, of course, not the world. And first, they were asked to initially imagine an animal, any animal, okay, and then a different animal of the same species. Okay, so it could be, let's say, if this is maybe a sheep. Okay, so maybe this is a goat, or maybe between a dog and a sheep, something like that. And then they have to come up with a member of different species, something completely different. Okay, so that was the task, right? And the outcome was majority of the participants actually imagined creatures that were somewhat typical to what they know that exists on Earth. Okay, so that's why people actually dealt with the task first by retrieving examples from what is known. So the examples of animals that exist on Earth, then only they will start to modify that to produce something they think is of different type of species, something that they've never seen on Earth. So that's why the very first bit is called pre-inventive structure, and the later part is called exploration of this pre-inventive structure under the guidance or constraints. So of course, when you have this one as like a template or a model, then it makes it easier for you to do changes. You kind of like scope down what you need to think of rather than to come up with something completely novel, right? So that's why producing something creative, it's not that easy because we in general, right, humans in general tend to associate with what we know, right? Remember we were talking about this category relationship driven levels, right? So the basic structure, the basic level is more common. That's because we are very much tuned to actually put our thoughts along that level. Okay, so yeah, remember just now I gave you this list of activities. So this is something that you can test because you're not participating, but it's really interesting if you were a participant, I can assure you. But because you don't have time, so that's okay. So people, so this is basically an actual experiment which was done with children of different ages, right? So they were, I think, as early as 4 years old up until 12 years old, if I'm not mistaken. And the children were asked to do their drawings across all of these different criteria. So they were told, like, draw me a human that doesn't exist, or draw me a human you invent, or an animal you have never seen before. So any one of these, right? And it's interesting to see what the children actually managed to draw. So it was found that children who happen to be in younger age only can do what we call inter representation. Okay, so they're not able to do cross category, which means that, okay, if they combine, let's say, a human and an animal, clearly we don't see that. Or maybe you've seen it somewhere in movies, but maybe a house with wings, it's not something common. So among children, what they do is they first draw the house, and then only they start to add a wing. So they and then they can come back to drawing, let's say, the door or the windows or the chimney, for example, right? So they're able to cross between domains or different between categories quicker, and it is expected that you should also be able to do that. And what we normally do when we are asked to draw something that is creative, because I've also done this in previous sessions, and you guys also come up with more or less the same drawing structure, some of it very similar to what we have over here, even without knowing this. So so first of all is basically doing this cross category. Another one is they start to insert elements. So we don't normally see, humans probably have not seen human with many hands, or maybe this one we have seen, but maybe for children that one is completely different to them. So so these are older children, and as they become younger, what they normally do is they only remove certain elements from that drawings. So like, if human like without one eye, or without we normally have a pair of legs, ears, eyes, and so on, right? But they normally remove some of these elements, and these appear to be more prevalent among younger generations, or younger students, younger age children, right? So they delete, and sometimes they change the shape or size of the elements. So again, this happens. And they also change the shape of the whole entire objects. So do this experiment. I know it's very interesting if you were to do it with someone. I mean, by now you already know, maybe it doesn't really work on you, but if you draw this, even more interesting if you have younger siblings in your household. Okay, and see in which category they are in, and see whether they are in the older category or younger category. So that is all we have for intelligence and creativity that we have. We now want to move to the next topic. Before that, do you have any questions?
Nope.
No? Okay.
Nope.
Do you need a break, or do you want to continue?
I guess continue is fine. Continue is fine.
Okay. Yep. All right. So then, what we want to look at next is basically emotion and expression. Could be something that you might want to consider in your projects or in your summative assessment later. So right. So these are the things that we want to look into. The importance of emotion, its effect and relationship with cognition, how it affects our memory, our organization, and comprehension ability. Now, tell me the different types of emotions that you can think of. Just list down a few randomly.
Right. Joy.
Yeah. Joy.
Sad.
Interesting. Sad. Yeah.
Anger.
Yes.
Yeah.
Confused. Yeah. Happy.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So all of those are just different types
Jealousy.
of jealousy. Did anybody mention jealousy?
Yeah. Jealousy.
Very difficult to control jealousy, right? For the rest, happy, sad, anxious. Anxious also very difficult to control, I have to say. Anger, maybe you can control anger a little bit, I think. Disgust also, some of these emotions you can hide, but some of it you cannot hide, and some of it you don't even have like direct control, such as, jealousy is just so difficult. We feel that, the emotion is just overwhelming, right? So yeah, I mean, if you have experienced jealousy, you know what I mean. I think most of us do. Okay, so of course it affects our daily life in many ways. You know, you can be like very happy 1 second, and then the next second you can be very angry or very sad or anxious or any types of emotions that we can think of. So, you know, it's interesting to see how emotions can actually take control of our lives. You know, some people just cannot proceed, cannot continue with their daily life simply because they are so badly affected with their present state of emotion. So of course, that actually influence a lot of our cognitive processes, such as, you know, being able to think, being able to make decision correctly. You know, if you are not in the right state of, or in a positive state of emotion, you know, a lot of things actually get affected, right? So so especially when you are in negative states, such as being sad or depressed, we are often less attentive to our environment, okay, and it's likely that we process information less efficiently as well. So I think we have seen accidents or incidents that happens between like flying aircraft. I think the latest one is the LRT, you know, the Kelana Jaya LRT train. Do you guys know that there was a clash? There was an incident between trains. Yeah, it's really sad, right? So a lot of people got injured. So, and then they concluded that it's because of human error. So they happened to be on the same track at the same time when the event happened. So it could be due to many reasons. So you can say that maybe the driver was under a lot of stress. We don't know. Okay, it could be, right? So, but we have seen such cases. You know, at least air traffic controllers become very stressed, and they forget to attend to too closely flying air flights. And depressed patients as well tend to lead to reduced ability in their memory. And of course, that is a lot that we see in clinical studies, and that drives us to knowing more about the emotional states, so that, you know, we can actually do something to avoid any negative states without taking some kind of medication, right? So the development of useful ways to manipulate emotional states have been done through several studies, such as hypnosis, and there's this procedure called Velton procedure, where verbal induction, so it's actually a series of statements that people use prior to experiments to induce certain emotions. And it's called Velton procedure, I think. And when people read that, you know, they kind of put them temporarily in a designated kind of emotion according to how the experimenter wants it. So kind of like a way of hypnosis. But of course, there's a lot of debate about this, you know, whether you can really hypnotize a person or not. Okay, so that is that. So what we want to look at next is this effect called mood congruent effect. So by definition, it says over here that people are best to remember information that is congruent with their mood effect when they learn the material. Now, do you remember the diving experiment? What is it? I've forgotten the name of the theory now. Something specificity, if you remember. So right, so in that experiment, what actually happens is people were made to be you know, they were made to wear certain equipment, diving equipment, and then they learn on land or underwater, and then they were tested, right? So it's the same thing applies over here. So Bauer, the same researchers we look at in memory research, did this experiment where they asked participants to be made happy or sad using hypnotic suggestion, and after that they asked these people to read a story about two men, okay, who got together to play this tennis game. One is actually Andre, who's very happy, everything is good with him. He's got, like, you know, he scores well in school, he's got girlfriends, he does well in tennis. And another person is Jack, who is the complete opposite of Andre. Okay, so Jack is sad, he's got problems with the girlfriend, doesn't have any girlfriend or got issues with her, and then he doesn't really do well in tennis as well. And people were asked to read about these two characters, and they were asked to later identify who they thought the main character was, and to identify them later. So the idea of that experiment is there's this mood state at learning, which is temporarily made either happy or sad, and you find that if somebody is made happy, and in the state of recall, if they were also made happy, then their level of recall will likely be high. And the same thing, if they were sad and the mood of state is also sad, their level of recall will be also high. But if it's like a combination of these two, then the percentage of recall will probably reduce. So this is what the mood congruent effect actually tells about this experiment. And this is consistent with the findings of the experiment, where people who were originally sad actually recall 80% of the sad character, Jack in this case, compared to Andre, whereas subjects or participants who were made happy as they participate in the experiments were able to recall about 55% of the happy character, which is basically Andre compared to Jack. Although it's not exactly, you can say that it's more or less the same, but what is most obvious over here is when someone is sad, and sad incidents are more likely to be reminded. So the take-home message over here is please don't be sad, okay? Because if you put yourself in a sad state, it is likely that you become a magnet of everything that is sad. Okay, this is based on experiment. This is already based on a lot of research that's been done. So make sure when you are answering your exam question, make sure that you are in the happiest state possible, okay? Because it is likely that you will remember all the happy things. Hopefully you remember happy things. So there are factors that influence the strength of this effect. So one is, of course, the mood congruency effect that we look into. The to be remembered item needs to be self-referential. So this is something reflecting what we have already learned. If you can actually relate that to yourself, then of course the learning material will be a lot easier for you. And of course, both of these needs to be congruent. Okay, they have to be at the same state to help you to recall at a higher rate of accuracy. Okay. So we look at memory, how mood actually affects memory. We now want to look at how mood actually affects encoding, which means that how you save that information in our memory as we learn. Okay. So what has been done over here is participants were asked to remember or learn a list of pairs in the form of consonant, vowel, consonant. So consonant, vowel, consonant, consonant, vowel, consonant. So it shouldn't make any sense to them. Again, they were induced with some kind of mood using this Welton procedure, the one that I indicated or described earlier on, to induce three types of emotional states. So one is happy, one is sad, another one is neutral. And in this Welton procedure, they were asked to read like a series of statements. So like, for people who were asked to, who were expected to be happy, read like mainly happy statements. So after that, they kind of like indicated that they are a little bit more happy, or their state of emotion is more happy compared to the remaining two. So that's how it works in this procedure. And then they were then asked to, so the task was questionnaire to confirm the induction procedure was effective. So that was that. So there was again 5 trials of this learning task, which is basically a recall. And again, it was found that participants who were in a happy state, of course, supersedes those who were temporarily made sad. But what is further interesting about this is, if you look at this graph, okay, people were, of course, you say that, okay, if you're happy, it is likely you'll be able to recall more information. But apparently, more interestingly, in order for you to save the information, to encode the newly learned materials in your memory, okay, to encode, it is best for you to be in a neutral mode. So you do not have to try too much to make yourself temporarily happy as you try to learn new things, right? So as you learn, it's probably best for you to be in the most neutral state possible, because at least this is what this is shown. Of course, you can say that, well, it can be debatable because that could only apply to this experiment, which is true. But at least this is just one example that says that at least a neutral state seems to supersede a happy state when it comes to us trying to learn new information. Okay. And the next is about organization. Now, we know that the effect is whenever you need to be happy for you to recall information. As you learn, it's best for you to be in a neutral state. Okay, and now we want to look at the effect on organization. Now, if you look over here, when stressed or in poor mood, we are often forgetful and our ability to think clearly are impaired. I think most of us can agree with this statement, right? So, of course, when you are basically being affected, right? You have a poor mood, you're being affected, emotionally affected by something, doesn't matter what it is. Your immunity can also reduce. Okay, there's a possibility that it can become poorer, and your ability to recall also reduce. Okay, and your ability to do clustering in a free recall appears to also reduce. Okay, and this has been shown repetitively across different experiments and studies. So Lee and Ellis, as well as Russell and Bickheiss, also did this experiment, and again it was an extension of the consonant vowel consonant. They got people to memorize those, and they wanted to see whether basically those people, so these letters are actually sequenced and broken into several units, several parts. There were two conditions. One is the constant, so they grouped like the same in each presentation, and another group actually saw like different units of pronounceable units. For example, you see this one in 2 units, but the same word can also be broken into 2 units, right? 2 versus 3. So they wanted to see the effect of people in different moods when it comes to organizing this series of information, right? And so that was the task. So the subject had to look for these pronounceable organized units and in either sad or neutral mode. And the findings is again people who are in neutral mode, of course, in a varied in a neutral mode, you know, again both actually it seems to be better, but you know, in neutral is again always supersedes the depressed mode. It's just that, you know, there's a level over here. So if you are in a neutral state, okay, your ability to perform at your best is basically the highest, because this varied condition is considered the more difficult condition compared to this constant condition. But if somebody is already depressed, you know, it doesn't matter whether it's constant or varied, you know, both of them actually doesn't actually help with the recall. So this induction of depressed mode actually severely impairs the performance of organization or being able to do chunking. So we looked at chunking previously, but that's the thing. If somebody is in a depressed mode, their ability to do chunking actually gets reduced almost, like, you know, dramatically. So that's another aspect that we now know, that in order for us to perform our best, maybe you know, a neutral state is a lot better than when we are in a poor mood or a sad or depressed state. Okay. So probably this is maybe the last few ones, the mood effect on text comprehension. So yeah, so again, this is consistent with what we have talked about. SAT students appears to make a lot more inaccurate or false identification when they are asked to respond after reading a series of texts, right? So those who are in SAT, of course, again, when you are neutral, in a neutral mode, you tend to be performing best or better. And if you look over here, SAT mode actually affects the ability to actively use our schema. So we look at schemas as well, right? So they were asked to, in this experiment, they were asked to read like a series of ambiguous stories. So for somebody who is not affected by poor mood, they're able to recall better. But because, you know, when someone is sad, right, you cannot focus because you're being distracted by many things, right? So you do the student or the participants tend to have very or poor comprehension or poorer comprehension, recall, and ability to relate to what they already know previously to their previous knowledge. So that's why even the ability to relate to their previous knowledge, to be able to do this analogical reasoning, requires a lot of schema usage. Okay, and it's not just the use, but these schemas need to be activated. Remember, we were talking about the neural neural network. So a lot of these nodes needs to be activated. But once someone is in a set mode, the ability to activate this corresponding or related schemas doesn't seems to be degrading, right? So what can be concluded over here is being in a set mode does affect our comprehension ability and how we actually judge how ability to judge how much student knows about a topic studied. So again, this is probably one of the tips that you can also have or use. That when it comes to studying, it is always best to just make yourself in this neutral mode. Do not study when you are in a set state, thinking that maybe things will be all right, things will overcome. Sort out your emotions first before you focus on your studies, right? So yeah, so that ends our lecture on emotions as well. So I think slides is already made available to you. I will update the tutorial, and next week we will have a combined tutorial for this topic and also language. And I think next week will be our final tutorial, because then I want to prepare you for your next bit, which is your summative assessment, which is what I want to talk about now. Right, so before I go into that, any questions about any parts of this lecture? Anyone? Hello?
Yes, I guess none that could. Yeah, I can't think of any right now.
Right. Okay. Okay then. Yeah.
Doctor, I have some questions, and it was about comparing an happy state and a sad state. I think that when a person is too happy, like say a tourist, they will become. Usually we see cases of the tourists losing their IDs and passports, probably due to theft, because they were too excited or happy when they go to tourist places. So usually, I think that usually sometimes that if they are too happy, they will be I would say not I think they will be like focused on one point, but they will disregard their surroundings and something like that.
Right. Yeah, so your point is very much related to basically encoding and of course doing these things like being aware in our state, right? Of course, what we have over here is more on recalling, but we have over here is storing the information. So of course, when somebody is happy, I do agree. I have to say that I've never probably come across any research yet that talks about this specific aspect about a tourist who comes and start seeing all these interesting things, never seen Malaysia, only probably thought Malaysia is like people who lives on trees and come here and suddenly saw KLCC. Probably they got very excited and happy. But whether or not how much that actually affects their ability to focus on other things, of course, I do agree that it will have some degree of effect, because once you are in this euphoria kind of mode, you're just you forget about other things, right? Because you're just too focused on one thing. That could be one of the reasons why all these pickpockets and the problems can come. But I don't think that is the only reason. what we see over here is it's more like, you know, the standard state of emotions that we need to put ourselves into when it comes to learning new things. But in that case, I think it could involve other factors as well. It's not just, you know, it could be that, you know, because they are you know, like different, they look different, you know, tourists normally look like completely different than locals, so that's why, because of that, they also become a center of attraction among the locals or pickpockets, right? So, and that this has nothing to do with emotion directly or indirectly, yes, but mostly what we're talking about in this context is more like in the context of learning and, like, you know, storing information, retrieving, and how our ability is being affected by doing organization when as we learn and want to update our schema. Yeah, so yeah, it's a very good point. So it could be, if you're interested, it could be, you know, a project that you want to do at some point.
Doctor,
Yeah,
this is
thinking
a
of the point.
question. This is a question about the tests. How do they get people to like be happy and sad? Do they like find people, like find already sad people, or do they like induce it after they agree to participate in the experiment?
Well, they normally induce. So, of course, two conditions that we have over here. All right. So the first condition is when it depends on what the study is like. So a lot of these studies on emotion, actually, as what I know, have been focusing on people who are known to be in negative state of emotion. For example, people who experience depressions, right? So we know that you know, and especially these days, we do have a lot of issues, especially students who claim or in fact experience depression. So a lot of these studies want to see how we can help people who are in this state to actually, you know, go out from this you know, this state without actually taking any medication, if it's possible. Okay, whether or not we can actually, you know, cognitively try to find out ways that we can you know, like maybe a shortcut or something, so that, you know, people can actually, you know, go out from this zone. And this is basically some of the findings. But there have also been studies where they will take normal people, just, you know, people who are, you know, have a lot of you know, people who are not depressed. But of course, they have certain, in an experiment, you normally have to come up with a hypothesis, and you need to identify what exactly we want to study. Okay, and in this state, they need to make sure that those people are put into a selected kind of mood. So that's why in this situation, a Welton procedure is actually being used quite often, but this procedure is it's quite an old procedure. Personally, I've seen that. You can Google for it. I've seen that, but haven't actually used this because emotion isn't actually, well, there's so many ways of how we want to evaluate emotions as well. One of the other ways is actually to evaluate the state of arousal and valence via a sensor device such as GSR, or, like, you know, one of the things that we look initially, remember in our first lecture, or was it first tutorial, you guys talked about like different devices such as EEG. So EEG can actually record different state of emotion, because apparently different parts of the brain gets activated in different situations. So if you were to do that with like normal people or depressed people, then you'll be able to see, you know, what moods or what emotional state actually gets activated for a specific environment or situation. Yeah. So there's a lot more that we can talk about, like, you know, when it comes to how exactly do we evaluate or how do we induce this temporary emotional state. But it is a very interesting area that researchers are in fact now still looking into. Yeah. Any other questions? Did I answer your question?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Good. Other questions or maybe recommendations, opinion? No? Okay.
Doctor,
Ah.
I have a question.
All right.
Is this the last lecture?
Yeah, do you want this as a last lecture, or do you want 10 more lectures after this?
I don't know. Should
I don't mind more lectures.
You want more lectures? Yeah.
Don't mind more lectures. Yeah.
You don't mind more lectures?
I mean, like, it's a fun
mind.
subject.
Is it a fun subject?
Yeah.
It's very different, right, compared to all your other technical subjects.
Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, it is the last lecture. I don't know, probably it's fortunate to some of the other students. Yeah, the thing is, yeah, because I understand that we are in now week 11. There's actually one more on decision making, but I've decided that maybe, I don't know, if you guys want that lecture, I can do it, but I've decided to actually not include that. But if you want to know about that, then we can probably have that as our, as our lecture next week. We can. That one is on decision making. I don't think that's a long one. So yeah, we can have that one if you want, on decision making. So that will probably conclude. Yeah. So right. Okay. So what I want to talk about now is let me see. What is it? Your exam, right? So by right, okay. Now week 11, right?
Yes, Doctor.
Yes.
Right. Okay. So we have ample time actually. Now you are okay. So week 11, I think we can still have one more lecture next week. No problem. So next week will be our last lecture. Okay. After that, even if you ask for more lectures, I probably suggest you to come and do masters or PhD at a later time. Then there's a lot that you can learn. But for now, at this level, because this is only really a fundamental subject, even though there's more that I am also interested to teach you, there's a lot that you can look from the side of neuroscience. Something very interesting, but yeah, I shouldn't, because otherwise I will overwhelm you too much, and it's not part of your course learning outcome as well. It's not fair for me. Okay, so we will conclude next week, and then the following week you will have to submit your project, right? Group project. So I only need one project submission, so I expect to receive 12 project submission by then. My recommendation is to try to use this time to speed up with your project. So if you have any questions, you want me to clarify, you want me to verify, let me know. Even though response may be a bit slow now because I'm extremely occupied. Been going through a couple of things actually. So, but I will try to respond as soon as I can. Okay. And then, try to get it done by the 10th. If earlier, better. So the next thing I want to ask you is your final exam, okay, is not really the kind of final exam that the previous batches needed to do if this is actually taught physically. So we don't have going to exam hall. So your nature of final exam is now considered kind of more like an assignment. Okay, so there's no right and wrong answer. Okay, and you are evaluated in terms of other aspects as well, apart, because there's no right and wrong. So the nature of evaluation is more like how well you can defend your arguments, your ideas. So it is, of course, at a higher level, or the HOTS, higher order thinking. Okay, which is actually better. The next question I want to ask is when do you think you'll be ready to sit for your summative assessment? Okay, maybe for you to decide, I will give you a bit of idea of what your summative assessment is going to be like. Okay, so you will have to do a case study. Okay, if you want to have a look at an example of case study, refer to last year's final exam question. If you need a copy of it, I can give you. I cannot give you a copy of your final exam summative right now, but I probably will be able to give you once you're ready. Okay. You will have 2 questions to do. Okay. It's in the form of problems where you will be given like a scenario. So last year students needed to answer 3 questions. This year I reduce one question, you only need to answer 2 questions, but that also means that each question has more marks now. But I think it's better because you can then focus on those questions more. Okay, so you have to do 2 questions. Both questions are basically case study format. What you expect to do is basically however you want to submit your work, it's up to you whether you want to submit as like report or presentation. So everything is actually listed in the question. So the question should be quite clear. And I will of course go through with you again later. Okay, but and I think you need you probably need a few days or weeks to do the exam, the summative assessment. So right, and I think I will give you around, how long do you need? Do you need 1 week or do you need 2 weeks? What do you say?
The
2
deadline will
weeks,
be
1 week for each question.
1 week for each question. The deadline depends on whether you choose a week or 2 weeks, right? So we need to submit by, because I have so many to mark from your class alone. So including this exam question, I probably have close to 200 plus, probably 220 marking sort of like sheets to go through, including all sorts of assessments. So you're right, okay. So now week 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Okay. If I open the exam question on the 10th, you will have to submit on the 24th. I'm hoping that the last date of submission will be 25th. Okay, so it's either I open it on 11th, or if you want it earlier, 4th, then you have to submit on the 18th.
I think it's best open on the 10th.
On the 10th, after you submit your group project.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So that's why I think I need to discuss with you if you're you're good to finalize your group project by the 10th, because I was thinking I don't mind giving earlier, but the thing is, if I give earlier, that also means that I need to close that. Your submission has to be 2 weeks after that, so it's 1 week after, right? I cannot give you too long as well because I'm bound to basically later make a report about how you guys did and how long examined the period, because we, as much as we can, we still have to stick to some of the examination requirements because it's still an exam. It's just that it's a different format. Okay. It needs a lot of thinking as well. It's not something that you can Google and just copy and paste, because none of the exam questions actually came from the internet. It was like handcrafted. It took a very long time for me to craft these exam questions, and it requires your understanding of like the different topics as well. So it's not like, I mean, it's better. I recommend that you go through the courses first, or the topics, or these 12 weeks topic, including next week's, and then only go for your exam, because I'm worried if I open it too soon, then you have your group project to do, and then you might want to finalize with other assessment from other courses. So I'm afraid that might be in your way, so it might be burdening for you as well. So if you say on the 10th, can we all agree that we will look at the summative assessment questions again on the 10th, and then you will have to submit by the 24th. Now, is it okay? Can I hear a few votes?
Okay with that.
Yeah.
I'm okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good. All right.
Yes.
Okay. Right. Okay, good. So you have your own ample time. So within 2 weeks, I think it should be enough. Okay, I think because previously I only opened the exam question for 3 days, so students were like scrambling trying to finish, and they had more questions to do. So hopefully this time you're able to focus and be produce something that is more meaningful. Okay. I don't look at just completeness, but evaluation, you see a lot. The exam question will actually discuss about what you will be evaluated for the question, for every question, in fact. But I think 2 weeks should be sufficient now. Okay. All right then. So yes, one of the other things, this is very important. I need to highlight that I will not be able to accept any late submissions because exam procedures applies over here. Okay, so when the deadline is indicated from whatever time, hopefully we'll be able to open the exam and look at the exam question on the 10th, and then by 24th you have to submit. You cannot submit later, please. Please, 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 this is very important. Please don't come to me and give many reasons. You can say many things, okay, but because you've already been given 2 weeks, so please use whatever capacity that you have and read the question properly. And if you're not sure, you can always ask, but of course you don't ask me to check your answers lah, because your answer checking will only happen after you submit. But this has to be strict because we have also been reminded that we need to follow the exam standards, right? So when a deadline is already been given, we cannot accept anything after that deadline. So okay, so we'll talk about that again when we discuss about the summative exam questions when the time comes, which is basically on the 10th. Okay, so until then, I would say that, try as much as you can to finalize your group project. The sooner that you finish, the better, because then you will have time to study, at least to go through these topics. Of course, it's open book. Anytime you can look at all of whatever materials online, from slides and everything. But again, it's not something that's just cut and paste. Okay, it's something that needs to come from you because it's higher order thinking. So please make sure that you understand all these different topics that we do. Of course, reference to that topic is allowed because it's open book. Okay, and just make sure that you keep a note or reminder of when the deadline is. All right. Okay, so any questions?
Doctor, about group assignment for, since in report there's actually a method asking for design. So is the just to make sure, design is we write like which online software we use and then like.
Right.
Is it that kind of explanation?
Yeah. True. It's like how you actually develop your experiment, like what tools you use, who were your participants, what materials, how does the material looks like. Then if you control any variable, how did it look like? What variables were controlled, what was tested, what was your hypothesis? I think something else. Yeah, but that's the idea of design.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Doctor, I would have to ask about the data analysis for the assignment. Because our question is not really statistically, it's not really be doing in inferential statistics approach. That means we can only compute the means of the particular questions, then we infer the mean whether it's related to our hypothesis or not. That's all only we can do, like more to descriptive statistics. Is that okay?
Can if that's the best that you can do, okay, can. But in your discussion section, right, you need to elaborate more about what is your opinion about your results, whether or not it satisfies the hypothesis. If yes, okay, give your justification. If no, also give your justification in your opinion. But in that case, you may need to look for related references to support your findings.
So it's not necessary to do like t-test, ANOVA. So for the inferential statistics, it's not necessary, right?
If your data doesn't permit you to do that, then cannot do that, right? Yeah, probably because you don't have enough data. I don't know what kind of data you guys have, but if you cannot do that, then the focus will then have to be more on the discussion bit. Yeah, so at least there is a balance.
Yeah, we will plot more charts and compute the mean, so we infer conclusions based on their mean. So is that okay for the data is not matched with the hypothesis? Then we need to make some discussion to judge the data, right?
Yeah, right, correct. Yeah, it doesn't matter. I mean, whatever your results is, you use certain theories, right? So you already learned that theory will produce some sort of results based on the traditional experiment. But in your own study, maybe the results is not the same. Maybe it's completely different, or maybe partially different. It's fine. Don't change the result. The result is still a result. Okay. It doesn't matter. I'm not even looking. I'm not evaluating whether your result is correct or incorrect. What I'm evaluating is how well you can relate your findings with the theory, with the discussion, with your hypothesis, and what is your discussion, and how do you actually conclude this entire study. That is more important.
All right, understand. Thank you, Doctor.
Welcome. All right. Any last questions? I know that we have gone over time a bit.
Doctor, I have one question. Is there a cap to the video presentation in terms of time?
For which one? For the group assignment?
Yeah.
Try to stick to no. Well, there isn't. If I didn't indicate in the question paper, there isn't. But try to stick to maybe 10 minutes. Anything that is less than 15 minutes, lah.
Okay,
because the thing is, the longer that you present, of course, because I'm evaluating both your presentation and also your report. So yeah, I don't rely on just one of those. So that's fine.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. All right. Okay. Is that all? I hope that's all.
Yes.
Okay. Right. Okay then. All right. Thank you very much, guys. If there's anything that I need to respond over here. Okay. All right. Okay. So we agree on that. So I will see you guys on maybe next week on Tuesday. I will also share with you the tutorial questions later. But your tutorial evaluation will only be up until next week. Okay. Okay. So thank you very much, guys. Stay safe. Right, the number of cases today is alarming, so I hope you're all safe. And yeah, I'll see you guys next week then. Thanks.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you,
Doctor.
Thank you, Doctor.